Questions?
Yes. What I'm wondering, Lisa, is if we had your resume, then we went to the cover letter for this position. You talked about the need to have accomplishments, not just your duties and responsibilities listed in a resume. It seems to me what you have in your cover letter is you talked about that point, that pivoting point in the interview where you really want to build these out as stories. In a way, your cover letter has a feel of the teaser for the stories, like the little vignettes, perhaps, of a fuller story you'd tell in an interview.
Mhm.
Am I reading that correctly? Your
Mhm.
strategy around that? Okay. And I'm wondering also, being higher ed, do you think you have more leeway to write more opposed to other industries, right? Oh, you know.
Yeah, that's true. That is a good point. That would be cultural touch point.
Hmm.
That yeah, I think they like people who can write, and
Hmm. Yeah,
um they're less succinct um
yeah.
than say a business or a corporation would be. Yeah, that's true.
But what I really liked was you still really honed in on how you accomplish things in the cover letter versus you don't have that much leeway to be able to do that in the resume. But you've got some leeway to talk about how you did it here.
Yeah, and that's really, and that I'm glad you brought that up, because that really, that in itself explains why you need a cover letter,
Mhm.
because it draws out from the job description and from your resume. It lets you create this picture
Mhm.
of why, and this whole rationale, this persuasive rationale, why you are the one, you are the perfect candidate for
Mhm.
this position. What can you bring to this that mirrors what they want?
Yeah. A follow-up to that, Lisa, I'm wondering, I've heard recruiters say it's time, um, in more recent years, people are actually submitting cover letters less and less. So it seemed to me as like also you have such a leg up, an advantage if you submit a cover letter versus
Mhm.
if you decide not to and you just rationalize it by saying, well, they didn't ask for it anyway, I guess it wasn't required. But what you also said I liked was like you had demonstrated to them that you can actually write. Yeah, writing is more a technical. When I look at the resume, it's more like a technical kind of writing versus communicative type of writing, like you do in the cover letter. Like you can actually communicate, not not just talk like you would in the interview, but right, you can convey your experiences. And for me, it's like I keep thinking from the standpoint, if I was an interviewer, you've given me a lot of information to go with that I wouldn't have known about you in the resume. Right. So if anything, yeah, I can make my selection decision a lot easier now because you've provided this information.
It's interesting that you say that, because I was reading, I subscribe to a listserv called the Muse, MUSE. And I think in their most recent email, they said that people who aren't submitting a cover letter, like if they just go into LinkedIn and they do the easy apply and they just submit the resume,
Mhm.
they're missing the opportunity by not submitting a cover letter, because the cover letter is like tailored information,
Mhm.
a tailored rationale as to what makes you the
Mhm.
perfect candidate for this position.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the resume doesn't do that. The resume, it's not what it is. It's not its purpose.
Mhm.
Well, I know for I know you all know the federal government doesn't require a lot of those jobs. They don't require a cover letter either. Are you saying that you should do the cover letter, even
Yeah,
if the company is not requiring it?
yeah.
I mean, will they even look at it though?
Um, I, I, I mean, I don't know. but I always err on the side of giving someone more information because you never know, one, how many people are going to be looking at it. Even if one recruiter doesn't, another one may, or a hiring manager might. And it's always one of the big strengths of a cover letter, and I think Greg really made a good point in mentioning this, is it shows them that you can write and you can communicate, especially in an era when more and more people can't.
Mhm.
I mean, not everyone, but there are a lot of people out there that just don't write well.
I can just give a story too, Deborah. We recently hired, and she's featured on our homepage, a new executive director. But I would say the three premier candidates that applied for that position all wrote cover letters, and we did not request a cover letter.
Oh,
But I would tell you how much that impressed me, because one, it's extra effort. It's
right.
take effort to write that. And two, is really much like just tailing what Lisa said, I knew a little bit more about them, which I wouldn't have known, which made the selection process easier for us, right? Because if I do select someone and they didn't write a cover letter and I start going through the resume, I have to actually ask more questions to find out about the candidate. Whereas if you already provide it for me in a format that makes you look good, and it's not just look good, but really clearly says your accomplishments and experience, it's not inflating anything, then I'm like, oh, okay. And just to echo also what Lisa said, less and less people are submitting cover letters because they say, oh, it's not required, so now I have an excuse not to do it. And it's effort, there's no doubt of it, but it also just says, I got to learn more about the person in the cover letter, right? Because a little bit of your personality kind of comes forward. Maybe if it's not your personality, it's your work ethic,
Mhm.
in your characteristic is how you accomplish things, that you just don't have the wherewithal to be able to do that, in a resume.